Yeah, so Jim Everts here down on the ground in Hamburg, Germany. I'm joined by my colleague, Sebastian Martinez. We've just been at UFC Fight Night 134 here in Hamburg, Germany. Sebastian, we've just witnessed Anthony Smith defeat his second legend in as many months. Obviously defeating this evening Shogun Rua, first round knockout. I guess let's start off right there. What did you make of Anthony Smith's performance tonight? And I know Shogun is he was one of your favorite fighters growing up, and obviously very hard to see. But what did you make of Anthony Smith first of all?
I mean, I think we got a new star in the making. Honestly, we saw it all week, where we were all very impressed by how well spoken, articulate he was. He markets himself well. I feel like he lives up to everything he says pre-fight about, being one of those anytime, anywhere, any place old school fighters. And this was, I truly feel like this was his coming out party. I mean, let's face it, he defeated Rashad Evans, who was on a 4-fight losing streak on an undercard, whereas now he defeats Shogun, who was on a 3-fight winning streak in the main event. So I feel like, his stock is just going to rise astronomically after this. And, Smith did what he did best. He was violent AF and just did everything he was supposed to do. He never really seemed to be in any real danger, and the moment he smelled blood, he just swarmed Shogun like a shark. And it was, as Cub Swanson usually says, beautiful violence. And it was top notch. I think that we're definitely going to see him face a top 10 opponent very soon.
What did you make of Shogun tonight? People were saying when he was walking to the cage on social media that he didn't look himself. Perhaps he was sick, perhaps he was injured maybe. What did you make of him this evening? I guess, where do you think he goes from here?
I wouldn't be surprised if he retires after this was a pretty devastating loss. Unfortunately, I didn't really see so much of a walkout portion, but I think that, let's face it, he's up there in age. He's been through so many wars at this point. He's had a lot of really tough losses, and I don't know, I can't really see him going anywhere else aside from perhaps a few marquee money fights. Maybe some big names who are also sort of on their way down in their career, similar to him. But I can't really, as much as it pains me to say it, I can't really see him doing particularly well against any of the top 10 in the division.
Sure, I guess there are some other aging fighters in the division who could be perhaps more interesting matchups for him. Tonight he came up against Anthony Smith, who certainly is on the rise at the moment. After the fight, and before the fight even, he said that I want to fight Alexander Gustafsson at UFC 227. Unfortunately, we know now, John Morgan actually reporting from MMA Junkie that he's actually picked up an injury and is out of UFC 227 very disappointingly. But Anthony Smith went there, man. He said, I was going to call him out. He called him out. Who would you like to see Anthony Smith fight next?
That's a tough one. He said he wants to fight at the Lincoln card. I would personally like to see him against Corey Anderson. I don't think Anderson will be able to do that as quickly because he said, he's got an injured hand. He wants to take some time off. He's put his family and team through 2 short notice fights. So that probably will fall through. If they don't make that fight, I could see Smith taking on
Jimmy Manuwa, maybe?
Yeah, Jimmy Manuwa is a good fight. That was suggested to him. I'm not sure how keen Manuwa is on that fight, considering that it's like kind of a high-risk, low-reward fight. But I'd say that's a very good fight. If Ilir Latifi can get in there quickly again from his injury, depending on how bad it is, I'd say that would be a pretty good fight. Aside from that, I don't know. It's a little hard to see right now. He wants to fight as soon as possible, or at the Lincoln card, and yeah, I think as of right now, Jimmy Manuwa is probably the strongest contender.
Sure. Just so everyone knows, actually, we're here in the Fighter Hotel post-fight. A lot of people enjoying themselves, grabbing a lot of beers, so that's why it's a bit noisy. I also want to talk to you, I guess, about the co-main event of the evening. Corey Anderson defeating Glover Teixeira. What did you make of Corey Anderson's performance? People are saying, I guess it wasn't the one of the greatest fights of the night, but he did what he had to do. It was a functional performance, I thought.
Yeah, he definitely did exactly what. But I think he actually deserves a little bit more credit than he's getting, because he was outboxing Glover Teixeira. I thought there were many moments where he was getting the best of a stand-up, Now, he didn't always continue or fulfill some of those openings that he created. I thought there were some moments where he sort of went for takedowns that didn't really lead to anything, where he perhaps could have kept it standing or perhaps repositioned himself. But honestly, he looked great. He did everything he was supposed to do. He impressed, I think, a lot of us standing up. We are seeing a lot of us are seeing this as kind of a striker versus grappler type of matchup. Anderson proved that he can strike with one of the best boxers in the division. I mean, he just defeated the number 3 guy every round, clearly from every judge. I'd say it was a great performance, especially considering that he's coming in on a short notice as well. I mean, top-notch performance, and he truly deserved. Both him and Anthony Smith, they delivered. They performed exactly how they were supposed to achieve sort of like the best possible result. And I think they both deserve a big fight next.
Let's be honest here. We just saw a fight night with 9 decisions in a row.
Yeah.
Personally, I didn't think it was one of the most entertaining fight nights I've ever covered. I was bored at times. Yeah. If I'm honest with you, but there were some great fights. Fights of the night this evening went to Danny Hot Chocolate Roberts. He defeated David Zvada by a split decision in what was a very entertaining fight. Went everywhere. They kept it on the feet. They went on the mat. There was several submission attempts. What did you make of Danny Roberts? But also, I want to hear your thoughts on David Zvada as well, who came in and took this fight on just 7 days' notice.
I'd say this is one of those fights where there's not really a loser. I mean, obviously, of course, literally there is. But I thought David Zvada, he did extremely well. I thought there were a lot of moments in the fight where he was getting the better of Danny Roberts, and I wasn't completely. I mean, admittedly, it's also because when we're in the media room backstage, we can't always decide when the fighter comes in that we're going to interview, and it just so happened that we were doing an interview throughout most of a fight between Roberts and Zavada. But from what I saw, Zavada did very well, and I mean, we talked about it in the MMAnytt school before this, that as far as late replacements go, this was a top-notch late replacement that probably was destined for the UFC very soon anyway. I think Danny Roberts, he proved that he can overcome a lot of adversity. He's had a lot of hard stuff going on in his personal life as of recently, which definitely can affect one's performance. He did it like a champ. He delivered a lot of great strikes. He withstood a lot of dangerous submission attempts and a lot of sort of grappling exchanges and scrambles. Danny Roberts has been one of those guys who he's had so much potential, but he hasn't really necessarily lived up to in every single performance. But this was, I don't know, it feels like he's kind of on the right track again. And Zavada, I mean, I think he's got a bright future in the UFC. I'd love to see him with a full training camp against a similar opponent to Danny Roberts, that sort of level, and I think that he will perform very well.
So many other fights, I guess, obviously took place this evening, 13 in total. Who else, I guess, caught your eye, and who impressed you tonight, and who do you walk away from this evening having, seeing their stock having risen?
Well, I think one of the fighters who impressed me the most was Alexander Rakic.
Oh, yeah. So here's a great stat for everyone. So this evening, obviously, he faced Justin Ledet. Justin Ledet moving down from heavyweight to light heavyweight, undefeated previously. Alexander Rakic outstruck him by 252 strikes to 20.
That's insane statistics. And, I mean, I think every round was 10-8, if I'm not mistaken.
Not on all of the scorecards, but on one of them there was. And, it was just totally, utterly, the word is dominant.
Yeah, it was one of the most dominant performances I've seen in a long time. I'm hard-pressed right now to think of another one that was truly as one-sided as...
That went the full distance, right?
Yeah, exactly. Rakic, he definitely shows a lot of potential. He's had 2 very strong performances now against France Marbrehose is obviously not seen as the world's most exciting fighter, but he's a strong, capable guy, a good test for a young talent like Rakic. And Justin Ledet, who was in kind of a similar up-and-coming, promising prospect. Rakic definitely impressed. I think Darko Stosic, even if the finish was a little weird, but I mean, obviously a first-round knockout in your UFC debut definitely says a lot. He trains with Mirko Krokop, which definitely gives him a lot of experience to fall back on. I think that I think it also Demir Hadzovic getting back in the win column against, as the underdog against the hometown favorite, Nick Hein.
Great fight.
Yeah, a very good fight. I mean, I think both of them showed a lot of composure. I mean, actually a pretty good fight for both of them. Hadzovic is someone who I obviously know from before, and who I'm glad to to consider a friend. But objectively, I'd say it was a very strong performance despite that, especially the third round where he really found his distance and his timing correctly, and was, I think, actually pretty close to finishing the fight. But he was a little bit unsure. He was, had his back against the wall ahead of his fight. It was do or die for him. So I completely understand that he kind of, wanted to not play it safe, but make sure that he didn't take unnecessary risks. I'd say that those three from the undercard definitely impressed quite a bit. And Nasrat Hakparas.
Oh man, hats off to Naz. I think I've said my piece about him before when he signed for the UFC. I looked at his record and wasn't particularly impressed by the people that he had faced.
Let's face it, none of us were, though.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. But tonight he 100% proved that he's UFC caliber. Proved me totally wrong. I questioned whether he was or not, and he definitely was. What a performance tonight against Marjikazi, who unfortunately, to the contrary, actually falls on a three-fight losing streak in the UFC. Could be staring at the door.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they cut him, considering that these past 3 fights just have not at all been... Admittedly, he's been matched tough. I mean, a loss to Drakkar Klose, and then you're put up against Dan Hooker, who is one of the most underrated guys in the division. He has definitely been given 2 tall orders, but I feel like this was, on paper, a favorable matchup for him, and he didn't deliver, and a lot of holes were exposed in his game. Considering that he does have so much potential, I do think the UFC will give him one last shot. But damn, it's not looking good for Diakase, and if he's going to live up to the hype and the expectations people have on him, he's got to make some changes in his camp.
He's got to do something quick, and he's got to do it very, very fast if he gets that opportunity at all. So I guess I just want to end it on this note. You've taken in the full event tonight. You've taken in the atmosphere of being in there on press row, being backstage. You've been here pretty much the whole fight week. What do you leave, I guess, Hamburg feeling about this event tonight? Give me a rating out of 10.
Ooh, tough one. Yeah, I'll be real. This is kind of a 6 out of 10 rating for me. There were some very impressive performances, but there was also definitely a lot of downtime. There was what was it, 9 straight decisions, and a lot of big fights that fell through. Now, admittedly, I feel that all the replacement fighters actually really delivered, and I think all of them more so than some of the other fighters who did have a full training camp. But yeah, there was a bit too much downtime in some of the fights. A couple of fights that definitely had me looking at my clock. So yeah, 6 out of 10 for me. What about you?
Yeah, no, 6 out of 10 definitely. I think all week we've been, it's been somewhat of a lackadaisical fight week, and there's been a lot of downtime for us. We've had to create our own content, do a lot of stuff ourselves. If we wanted to talk to people like Emil Weber-Meek and just Danny Hot Chocolate Roberts, other people that just weren't on media days, and I feel that this is probably one of the weaker European events I've been to. I don't think this is terminal. I think this is just circumstances. I think there are a lot of injuries. We know that Germany isn't the most hot MMA market. They lost their TV deal. That didn't help. Yeah. Whatever. We just saw 13 fights tonight. 26 fighters went in the octagon, put it all on the line for our entertainment. 9 went to decisions. There was still a lot of things to take away from this evening. I'm glad I was here, and I'm glad I witnessed those fights. So how about we end it on that note? As I said, we're here at the UFC hotel. We're going to go and attempt to talk to some of the fighters who have had a few hours, I guess, either celebrating their wins or drowning their sorrows. So anyway, I've been Jim Edwards. He's been Sebastian Vena Martinez. MMAnytt just dominated another European mixed martial arts event. So thanks for watching our coverage, and no doubt we will see you all again very soon. I will be in LA for UFC 227, and you do never want to miss that.
Great stuff.